and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Man, as loaded a Friday show as we can have. And listen, Fridays during football season, particularly ahead of conference championship weekend in college football, there's always a ton to talk about. We're actually going to have an NBA topic later in the show, about 45 minutes from now. Why the Los Angeles Lakers struggles were totally predictable. And I actually like a couple components in the Lakers squad, just not enough. Getting that in about 45 minutes. The Vol View, Tennessee obviously does not play this week. They did not make the SEC title game. Nonetheless, they will be a college football playoff team, and they got screwed in a major way by the College Football Playoff Committee. Getting to that, and I'll tell you why in a half hour, 30 minutes from now, as we always do at 6:30 Eastern for the Vol View. In about 12 minutes, talk about the Packers, why I think we got a little too early on calling them title contenders. Not to say they're not a good team. They took Detroit down the wire last night, and obviously we'll lead off talking about the Lions in just a second. But I think we got a little too far ahead of ourselves. Get to that in about 10 to 12. Later on in the show, in about an hour, top of the next hour, conference championship predictions and what they will mean for the final college football playoff predictions, or college football playoff rankings, the final ones that will come out on Sunday, determining who will make the first 12-team playoff in the history of college football. And, of course, the end of the show. We got Week 14 NFL predictions. Got my upset of the week. We got Bryson's Bleak Bet. And, of course, my favorite segment every week, If I Were a Bettin Man. It's Week 14, folks. And I'm still looking for my first 3-0 week. I'm not proud to say that, but I think this is going to be it. I feel kind of like this is going to be the week that we finally go 3-0 on my favorite segment in the world called If I Were a Bettin Man. My man Patrick Brown's in the comments. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Patrick. NFL MVP article is available on the Grid webpage as well. Definitely be sure to check that out. Patrick writes some great articles for the Grid. Did write a fantastic MVP articles. Please, please, please be sure to check that out. Google the Grid on, just Google the Grid, and there's a pod page, a logo, or a link. Hit that. Patrick's articles are going to be one of the first things you see, so check those out when you go over there. So let's talk about that game last night. But first, I mean, I feel so freaking guilty. I really do. Many folks that have watched this show over the course of time know I've been a Steelers fan, but a Detroit Lions guy for about the last year and a half. I won't go through the whole situation. I've done that before. I'm a Lions guy. Picked him to go to the Super Bowl this year. Still, I feel strong as ever about that. Out of the NFC, they've now won a franchise record 11 games in a row. And for the 11th straight week, Dan Campbell, what'd y'all do last night?
Kneecap.
I'll say it's a weekly tradition at this point. So Detroit wins a thriller 34-31 over the division rival Green Bay Packers at home. I know some sports books had it at Detroit -3.5. I took it Green Bay +3, and the beauty is it was a wash. It was a push. Detroit won the game by 3 points. So listen, the main story, let's dive right into it, is the fourth down call. So for those who didn't see the game, first of all, I'm so sorry to hear that. It was fantastic. So Detroit's got the ball. Game knotted, 31 apiece. It's been crazy. There's been turnovers. Josh Jacobs has 3 touchdowns for Green Bay, and Jordan Love had just made a great throw in the previous drive for the Packers, and Jared Goff's got to go in. It's a great game. And with 43 seconds to go, the Detroit Lions have a 4th down and 1 at the Green Bay 21-yard line. The Packers are without their timeouts. The Lions, of course, 4th down, 43 seconds to go, particularly with Green Bay without their timeouts, are in field goal range for Jake Bates, who's been the definition of clutch this year. He's been fantastic, making clutch kicks all year. And Dan Campbell, as opposed to just going and taking the points, take the lead, 34-31, he says, no, my defense is already beat up. We just lost more guys due to injury. We lost an interior defensive lineman to a concussion. We're beat to hell right now. And the Packers have exposed us in the second half for that. Okay, Green Bay got held to 7 the first half, 24 in the second half. They gashed them, particularly in the running game. And Dan Campbell's like, man, it's risky, but you know what? I'm Dan effing Campbell. This is what I'm going to do. So I have to say, I watched that game start to finish. with my sister, who some of you may know is a diehard Packers fan. Was wearing her cheesehead, the whole bit. Loves her Packers. We're watching that game last night. And Detroit calls timeout as it's 4th down. I'm like, okay, Dan Campbell wanted to run the clock down, burn his timeout, send out Jake Bates, and we'll see what Green Bay does. Jared Goff trots back out there. I'm thinking, okay, the Lions just use a timeout. You can't use back-to-back timeouts before a play is run in the NFL. It's against the rules. Can't do that. I'm thinking, they're not going to try and get him to jump off sides because they just take the penalty. It'd be an automatic 5-yard penalty because Detroit can't use timeout. I'm like, well, that's strange. They get lined up. I'm like, he's not going to do this, is he? Dan Campbell is Mr. Aggressive. He goes for all. He's not going to do that, is he? Like, he's not going to potentially come up empty in the spot where he's got not a chip shot field goal, but a very, very makeable field goal from about 48 yards out or so. Or actually, my bad, more like 38 yards out. Take the points, and he does it. And Jared Goff falls. Jared Goff gets stepped on the handoff. Thank God it wasn't college football rules, or Jared Goff would have been down on the spot. It would have been a disaster. Gets the handoff somehow to Knuckles, David Montgomery, who pushes forward right for the first down, and Detroit milks it down. Jake Bates walks it off. And there's been a lot of debate today, and I must say, oftentimes if there's a controversial call or decision by a coach, regardless of the sport, baseball by a manager, take a reliever out, leave him in. You know, we talked about that with Aaron Boone and the Yankees during Game 1 of the World Series. If a coach calls timeout, doesn't call timeout in basketball, similar situations in the NFL. Go for it, don't go for it, the whole bit. Oftentimes with these decisions, what we do is we don't judge the decision, we judge the result. See, if it doesn't work, oh, terrible call, what's this guy doing? But if it works, oh, he's a genius. We get in a bad pattern of doing that. I actually have been quite pleasantly surprised by seeing folks in the media say, yeah, I know they got it, still wouldn't have done it. And that's exactly how I feel. Here's what I say about Dan Campbell on that last 4th down call. Here's what I say. Wrong call, right philosophy. With the other 31 teams, heck, F it. All of the teams, all 32, Detroit included. Dear Lord, kick the field goal, go up 3. If Green Bay could start throwing 30, it'd be about 39, 40 seconds left. Okay, Green Bay could get in a field goal range. They could. But worst case scenario, unless Jordan Love goes into his Aaron Rodgers playbook and completes a Hail Mary, which Aaron did in Detroit on a Thursday night years ago, you're going to overtime, worst case scenario. Unless your defense just collapses. Okay? In that case, that's my point. Bruh, take the points. Like people are like, oh, the analytics say take the points. Kick the field goal. Far more upside going up 3 in that spot than a tie game and what have you. Right philosophy by Dan Campbell. I'm not going to sit up here and act like the Detroit Lions locker room is exactly going to just turn on Dan Campbell. That's the last coach, along with Mike Tomlin and Andy Reid and Jim Harbaugh in football, that's going to turn on their head coach. However, if you had to give me, you said, hey, there was a team this week, tie game, 21-yard line of the opposition, lay out the scenario, they went for it as opposed to taking the points, I'd be like, probably Detroit. It's probably Dan Campbell. It's like, yeah, of course it was. That's what Dan Campbell does. Right philosophy. Dan Campbell tells you exactly who he is. And I'm seeing some criticism like, well, the Lions are not the underdogs anymore. Doesn't matter. How'd they get there? As the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But not only if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but this is what has made the Lions successful. Now, listen, I've said for years, we got to give Brad Holmes a ton of credit for putting this roster together to begin with. But Dan Campbell has to make the decisions as the head coach. There's no question about that. Stick with what got you there. Ballsy? Just put it real. Ballsy? Yeah. Would I have done it? Not a chance. Like, I've ripped coaches for being too conservative. I've ripped Nick Sirianni for being inconsistent on his 4th downs to field goal calls. Dan Campbell says, I know who we are, know what we want to do. F it. We're going for this freaking 4th down, and we're going to get it. We're going to out-physical Green Bay. I don't trust my defense. That's, to me, the one area where I could see, okay, I kind of get why he went for it because his defense had gotten gashed in the second half. In the pass game, run game, the whole bit. But this is why the Detroit Lions love Dan Campbell. This is why they've won 11 games in a row. And this is why I think they're going to win the NFC. I get the defensive injuries. I get it. But that was a prime spot for them to lose. Green Bay's on a roll. Jordan Love's not turned the ball over. The Packers were without Romeo Doubs. But you still have Jaden Reed. You still have Christian Watson, who made some plays. You still got Dontavian Wicks. You've got Tucker Kraft. Packers are littered with young offensive weapons. Not to mention you could turn around and hand off to Josh Jacobs, who's came in this game as the third leading rusher in football. But this is who the Detroit Lions want to be. I defend the philosophy of Dan Campbell. Folks are saying, this is what got them beat against San Francisco in the NFC title game. Go back and look at the show that I did the day after they lost to the Niners. Defended Dan Campbell. I'm like, let's see. His defense is getting... Now, the defense last year was far worse than this year. Now, we'll see what happens with this defense with the injuries. But they got gashed last year by San Francisco starting the second half, and Dan Campbell can sense that is thinking, man, I know a field goal would... God, Purdy's starting to get it going, and Ayuk and Kittle and McCaffrey and Kyle Shanahan's in his... We got to try and hold the momentum. The NFL, and as the case with most sports, is a momentum league. When you got it, you better grab it and take it with you. And by the way, that's what the Lions have done the last 11 games. They came into this 2-game stretch after beating Chicago on Thanksgiving. One of the toughest 2-game stretches in the NFL this year. Certainly the toughest 2-game home stretch in the NFL, because both games are at Ford Field for Detroit. Home for Green Bay last night, and then home for Buffalo. Which, my gosh, is that that game's going to be on? Yeah, 4:25 CBS, Nance, Romo, Wolfson, the whole bit. That's going to be a huge game. Maybe a Super Bowl preview for all we know. Who knows? If the Lions go 2-0 in this stretch, I don't know what the case is that they're not the best team in football at that point. I knocked them down a spot. I put Buffalo ahead of them, but they're going to play this week. Let's see who's better. So that's going to be fun to watch. But I'll tell you what, that was... I wouldn't know... Listen... I never thought I'd see the day where a 12-year-old playing Madden would be more conservative than an NFL head coach. But we have we have found that day in history, the history of football. And this is Dan Campbell and a fired up locker room. You tell me you don't want to play football after watching this clip. Dan Campbell.
God! I told you you'd never forget this game. You will never forget this game. We don't have to talk about how tough we are. We don't have to talk about how resilient we are. We live it, man. We've been living it. Where's our defense at? Offense, that's the way to step up, man. That's the way to step up. There you go, Skip. Keep throwing up, whatever you're doing over there. That's the way to freaking lay it on the line. Guys, I'm so freaking proud of you, man. That's the way to show up. You talk about pressure, we live in pressure. That's where we freaking thrive. You did it again. You did it again. All right? It doesn't matter who's playing for us. It doesn't matter what's going on. You always find a way to win. That's what champions do. This is not happenstance, man. This doesn't just happen. This has been in the making, man.
Just let me at him, coach. I love Dan Campbell. I mean, that's poor Dan Skipper's out there vomiting in the corner. But that's who he is, and that's what makes him great. And that's why the Lions are the best team in the NFC. That's they embody their head coach. Great teams embody the identity of their head coach, and that is exactly what the Detroit Lions do. Patrick Brown in the comments. Listening to his post-game speeches, you can tell these players will run through a brick wall. Old school Tufts nose, and by golly, kneecaps makes a lot of sense 4 years later. Listen, I thought the guy was crazy. Not even... You know what? Not even crazy. That opening presser. I thought it was like, oh, he. You know what? Can I tell you what I felt like? This is a great analogy. Can I tell you what I felt like when Dan Campbell had his opening presser with the Detroit Lions when he had the kneecaps and all this? So we're gonna da. Here's how I felt about Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is or was at that time the happy bushy-tailed politician going to Washington saying, I'm going to change everything. It's like, oh, bless your heart. It's a lot more complicated than that. That's how I felt. It's like Dan Camp, like this guy's got the best intentions. I'm sure he means well, but it's Detroit. You want to talk about a losing culture. Detroit is at the top of the list with Cleveland and Jacksonville and the Jets and the Drubs of the NFL. Boy, was I wrong. That guy was great. Yeah, Patrick, for sure. If Dallas had Campbell, we'd be in a better spot. You think? Yeah. I'll tell you, Jerry would not be cool with Dan Campbell. He would, and it's not to say we would be cool with him, but I don't think that relationship would really work. But speaking of that game last night, let's talk about Green Bay. Because, listen, I thought the Packers were going to be about 11-win team coming this season. I obviously picked the Lions not to just win the NFC, but obviously to win what has become a jam-packed NFC North. They're going to make the playoffs. There's no question about that. Like, whoever is it, the 3 wild card teams are set. It's going to be 2 and 3 in the NFC North and Washington. Okay, no one else in the NFC. None of the other so-called contenders. Nobody's catching. You look at the standings right now. The second place in the NFC South or NFC West are not catching. Like NFC West and South, 1 playoff team, division winner. That's it. So I thought Green Bay would be slightly better than last year. I thought Jordan Love would either take another step from that hot finish last year when the second half of the season, arguably could make Jordan Love was the best quarterback in football over guys who had great years like Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy and Lamar Jackson, who won MVP. Statistically, Love was the best quarterback second half of 2023. So I thought either he would improve on that, which would be hard to do, or at least maintain that. And he's mostly maintained that. Not quite as hot as he was last year, but Jordan Love is still playing really good football this season. And his numbers weren't great last night, 12 of 20. I thought in the fourth quarter, that 2nd and 14 in his own territory when he got grabbed and was able to kind of sidearm it to Christian Watson, big time throw by Jordan Love. I do think, and ironically, I actually had the Packers as the one and done team this year. If you want to know who, it was to Dallas. I thought Dak would carry the Cowboys to the playoffs. A bad pick on my part. I thought they'd be about the same as last year. And there were a lot of folks, I'm not even faulting them for this, they've said, hey, they could win the NFC. Well, now I think that door for 2024 has closed. I don't see can the Green Bay Packers win a playoff game? Let's see. They shellacked Dallas last year and could have easily beaten San Francisco. If they had caught a couple of right in their breadbasket interceptions that Brock Purdy was begging to throw to him, could have been a very different game. And Green Bay would have went to Detroit for the NFC title game. This last night would have been an NFC title game rematch. I've said all year, and it's not even an indictment. I think it's just a reality. And by the way, I think both of these teams are going to be very successful in the future. Green Bay is the Houston Texans of the NFL, or of the NFC. Green Bay's the Houston Texans of the NFC. Really, really talented young quarterback. Smart coach, D'Amico Ryans, Matt LaFleur, really, really talented offensive skill position players. Green Bay more than Houston, but Houston has more young, talented defensive players than Green Bay. And it's ironic, when they played at Lambeau, Green Bay needed a walk-off field goal to beat them. Like, it was, that to me, I was like, I feel like I'm watching the mirror image of the same team. But Houston, CJ Stroud, taking a bit of a step back. Houston's going to make the playoffs. They're going to win the weak AFC South. Probably get bounced in round 1, if not certainly getting bounced in round 2 by a Kansas City, a Buffalo, or a Pittsburgh. That's how I feel about Green Bay. If Green Bay is currently the 6th seed, they would go to Seattle. If they find a way to, I don't think it's going to happen, if they were to climb in the 5 seed, beat out Minnesota. By the way, Minnesota's still alive for the NFC North, so let's not count them as dead yet. But just playing hypotheticals here, if Green Bay goes to Seattle, or if Green Bay were to go to Tampa Bay, Atlanta, whoever wins the South, I'm picking Green Bay to win that game. They have more talent. I think they have a coaching advantage, all those different things. But they don't quite have enough experience. See, young teams like this don't tend to win Super Bowls. Like Seattle in 2013 was a bit of an anomaly. Like if you remember the Seahawks in 2012, kind of took everybody off guard. Russell Wilson, who's this kid? Russell Wilson. They win a playoff game over Washington. They barely lose by the skin of their teeth to the Falcons in round 2, right? I remember that game quite well in 2012. Then Seattle comes back the next year. They're the best team in the NFC, beat New Orleans, survived the Niners of what was an all-time great defensive play by Richard Sherman, and then just put the shellacking of shellackings on the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 48, win a title, get to another Super Bowl, and we're thinking, oh man, this is the next dynasty. And then Malcolm Butler happens, and the Seahawks never made it back, and the team combusted over the next 5 to 7 years. Green Bay, if you want to feel optimistic if you're a Packers fan, Because if you want to feel optimistic, like, hey, we can still win a playoff game this season, A, but B, more importantly, big picture. Look no further than some of the early Aaron Rodgers teams with Mike McCarthy. Like, remember some of those Packers teams where it was they weren't that good in 08. I think they were like 6-10 in 08, which was Aaron's first season as the Packers starter. Came back in 09, were pretty good. Aaron was this hot shot quarterback, and then they lose a heartbreaker in overtime to the Arizona Cardinals in 2009. Come back in 2010, 6th seed, and then go on a crazy run that win the Super Bowl. Then in 2011, they're 15-1, and then they pull kind of a choke job, if we're being honest, against the Giants in round 2 against Eli and Mario Manningham and those guys. Okay, that feels like sort of the trajectory that if you're a Packers fan, you feel like we can get there. We're not paying anybody anything. We're still really young. LaFleur's a brilliant coach. Love tends to have his best football in the second half of seasons, as is the case with most younger quarterbacks. That tends to be the case. So if you're Green Bay, it's a brutal loss. Listen, if you were hoping to, at the bare minimum, climb into the 5 seed, if not, maybe, who knows, steal the NFC North. Yeah, last night was kind of devastating and pretty much put those hopes to bed. But at the same time, you're going to be a playoff team in a solid, actually a great NFC playoff wildcard picture. Just make sure you don't fall to the 7 seed. And you see what the rest of the season plays out. Again, i.e. Houston, only difference is Houston's going to win a very weak division. Green Bay would win the division if they were in Houston's shoes and kind of keep moving forward from there. So Green Bay is going to be fine moving forward. We'll see. I knew Patrick was going to bring this up. I knew it. I'll say this until the cows come home. Green Bay is having fun without Ayahuasca Rodgers. No issues with players under Rodgers. Coaches are happy, and the culture shift makes a difference. Indeed, it does. And it's so funny. You talk about LaFleur. You know, when LaFleur got the job in Green Bay, and this was widely reported, I actually remember reading this, and I did a review of the Aaron Rodgers book couple weeks, maybe a week or two before the season, Out of the Dark, which is a great title. Ian O'Connor, who's one of the best authors in sports, I highly recommend his work. His Aaron Rodgers book is his most recent one. Out of the Darkness, The Mystery of Aaron Rodgers. It's funny. We get an Aaron book, and now next week or 2 weeks from now, we're going to get an Aaron Rodgers documentary, which should be fascinating. But as far as the book, it talked about when LaFleur got hired, that because of the really tumultuous relationship between Rodgers and McCarthy, who are cool now, but not the case toward the end of McCarthy's time in Green Bay, that upper management told Aaron Rodgers, I forget if it was Ted Thompson, if it was Gutekunst, I forget who it was, told Aaron, don't mess this up. Like, okay. Those first few years, I'm like, I feel like Aaron's kind of a product of LaFleur. I'm sorry, LaFleur's kind of a product of Aaron, and kind of like McCarthy, I felt the same way, was a product of the great talent of Aaron Rodgers. And for the first few years, you could make that case. As a matter of fact, I still think you could still say that was what happened. Once Aaron moved out of his prime, has the down 2022, they move on, trade him to the Jets, and then Jordan Love comes up. I'm like, okay, we're about to see how good of a coach Matt LaFleur is, and I have my skepticisms. Go on a roll second half of the season, make the playoffs, smoke Dallas, almost beat the 1 seed Niners as a 7 seed. I'm like, okay, LaFleur's the guy. I was skeptical. I'm last on the LaFleur train. He's the guy. He 100% put himself into the unquestionably elite category by beating, not by beating, when Jordan Love went down. Remember that game that was the slippery field against Philly and Brazil? When he inserted Malik Willis. And I attended one of Malik Willis' starts, week 3 in Tennessee. Whole family went down. Sis was over the moon about it. And I'm watching Malik Willis, ironically against his old team, the Titans. I'm watching him like, I didn't think this guy could throw a forward pass in Tennessee. And here he is slinging it all over the yard to Christian Watson and to the tight ends, and he's moving well. I'm like, oh my. And by the way, Malik Willis was picked up by the Packers like after training camp. He wasn't there a month when he made his first start. Or he was around there, about a month, a little less. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this guy's a genius. Not to take credit away from Malik Willis, but the Titans would not let him throw in Tennessee. And here comes LaFleur. He's like, yeah, we're going to use the running game. Obviously, Josh Jacobs. But hey, young fella, slinging all over the field. I'm like, oh my God. Like, this guy's a genius. And by the way, Malik Willis came in after Love got hurt against Jacksonville, beat the Jaguars when it looked like Trevor was going to lead him to a win. So LaFleur's a fantastic coach. I mean, any sort of reservations Packers fans may have about some of the close games they've lost this season. And for the record, we could show you this graphic. If nothing else, the biggest reason Green Bay can't win this season is they just don't beat the best teams. We could show you relative to Detroit because that's the measuring stick. That's the best team in the NFC right now. This is Detroit and Green Bay against teams over 500. Lions are 5-0, Packers are 1-4. And you see some of those numbers. Lions average 6 more points than Green Bay against teams over 500. They give up 4 less points per game against teams over 500 than the Packers do. That tells you the story. Lions 5-0, Packers 1-4 against teams with a winning record. So you got to keep that in mind when you're evaluating contenders in the NFC. Be back after the break on Carving Up Live. We're just getting started, ladies and gentlemen, and a special edition of the Vol View. Tennessee didn't play this weekend, but Tennessee, by virtue of last week, we'll quickly recap, is in the college football playoff. And in a college football playoff rankings, which did the Volunteers dirty. Get to that in a minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So I'll tell you what, it has been we're in December now. I don't think I can remember a crazier college football season. And it's for a number of reasons. The fact that we had the conference realignment, which everybody freaked out about, turns out that has been amazing for the sport. I've always said about college football that I'm big on pro sports. This is why I support the Chiefs the way I do. This is why the fact that my Warriors were a dynasty was just, heaven for me for a number of reasons. And why I hope baseball at some point gets a dynasty. Obviously, I hope it's my Red Sox. With Juan Soto, you never know. He's going to announce his decision reportedly either tomorrow or Sunday. So fingers crossed, prayers said to the heavens on that one. Is that parity is actually bad for professional sports. It's not good. You say you want it, but you actually don't. The ratings indicate that when there's dynasties, where there's teams that are running over everybody, people watch because people are curious. Either folks root for them, which is the minority, or there's the majority. It's like, who's going to take them down? Who's going to take the Chiefs down? For years, who's going to take the Patriots down? Who's going to beat the Warriors? Okay, who's going to beat the late 90s New York Yankees? Like, it's really good. The Bulls in the 90s. It's great for professional sports. College sports, it's horrible. Because the fact of the matter is, if you suck in college, you don't get the first pick of the draft. You don't get the best 5-star recruit quarterback coming to your school. It doesn't work like that. It's you get whoever wants to come to your school, and that's how it works. So parity's great. Conference realignment has done it. NIL has done it. And the 12-team playoff has done it. So that's what has led to as compelling of a college football season as I can remember in my lifetime. So we'll get to the college football playoff rankings and what I think they'll look like after conference title game weekend, which obviously will include my predictions for such games. By the way, Boise State UNLV tonight. Can't wait for that matchup. No question about it. But I obviously have to touch on my Vols first because it has been a week that I've tried to get my head around in what I consider highway robbery as far as I'm concerned. So let's go. Let's cut the crap. No more into it. The Vol View starts right now. And as always, it's football time in Tennessee.
It's football time in Tennessee. football time in Tennessee.
Indeed, it is football time in Tennessee. I'm not going to lie, this blue shirt under my Tennessee hoodie doesn't fit that well. Nonetheless, Tennessee's not playing this week, so we can go a little bit more casual because the Vols got some time to rest, but also to prep for whoever their college football playoff opponent is. It's likely to be a certain opponent, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. So, quick recap for the Vols. So, again, the situation was simple. Talked about it in the Vol View last week at this time. Is on the road at Vanderbilt. Win and you're in. You win, you're in the college football playoff, and that's it. And so they spot Vanderbilt 14 points. Matter of fact, Vanderbilt actually returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown, and I remember just slumping in my seat thinking, oh my God, this is South Carolina 2 years ago all over again. For those that don't know, the Vols were a couple of wins away from the college football playoff in 2022, and they go on the road to South Carolina and get hosed 63-38. Hosed. And by the way, we lost our starting quarterback, Hendon Hooker, who's now Detroit Lions backup, Jared Goff's backup, to a season-ending ACL injury. So I was starting to have PTSD for that game. But then Tennessee got back on their feet. Nico Iamaleava had one of his best games of the season, 257 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a QBR of 90. And by the way, Tennessee rushed the ball for 281 yards. Dylan Sampson, as he has all season long, leading the charge. 25 for a $178, 7.1 yards per carry. Tennessee did the job. They guaranteed themselves a spot in the CFP. And the CFP committee said, good job. You're in. We about to screw y'all over. Because that's exactly what happened. As the seeding works, Tennessee, for the record, for those that don't know, Tennessee moved up. If we could pull up the rankings here, Tennessee moved up from the 8th best team in America, according to the College Football Playoff Committee, to number 7. But the way seeding works, the way with the conference champions, all that, they ended up at the 9 seed, going to Columbus to play the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now, we can show the resume comparison. If we can go, Alfred put together a really good graphic. Shout out to Alfred, that's my guy. If we can go and put up the graphic right here, Tennessee and Ohio State. Ohio State, so record the same, 10-2 record, 10-2 across the board. Ohio State, though, beat Tennessee in strength of schedule, beat them by a literal hair in strength of record. Ohio State 6, Tennessee 7, tomato. And then beat Tennessee in points per game. Ohio State's 12th in the nation, Tennessee's 18th. Both are excellent, but Ohio State's a little bit better there. Tennessee, however, has Ohio State in wins against ranked teams, 3-1 against ranked teams, to Ohio State's 2-1, and 3-1, this is big, versus teams over 500. Tennessee 3-1, Ohio State 4-2. Of course, one of those losses, one was to Oregon. Well, we're not going to fault Ohio State for that. Oregon's the best team in the country. I picked them to win the Natty. I loved Oregon coming into the season. Still think they're the favorite to win the national championship. And most recently to Michigan. You know, the same Michigan team that can barely throw a forward pass and pass probably the most abysmal passing offense in the Big Ten. I'm talking even among the bad Big Ten teams like Northwestern and Purdue and etc. Worse than that. Can't throw the football. Ohio State is a 20-point favorite. Ohio State, considering the fact that they lost the last 3 games to Michigan, which again, didn't fault them for really any of it, because my thing is, yeah, Michigan is better than Ohio State. A, I felt. And B, yeah, Jim Harbaugh is one of the best football coaches, college or pro, in the world. Yeah, of course you're going to lose to those teams. But not the case this time. When roster to roster, it ain't close. Particularly in the area, the number 1 area that is, that Ohio State can exploit. Michigan has some of the weakest, one of the weakest secondaries in the Big Ten, with injuries, by the way. Ohio State does not have the best wide receiving core in the Big Ten, but the best wide receiving core in college football. And they said, you know what we should do, considering all these massive advantages that we have. What we are going to do is try to establish the run game with Judkins and others. We're going to establish a run game against Michigan's strength of their defense, the interior of their defensive line, where they have future NFL guys up front. As a 20-point favorite, everything on the line, a spot in the Big Ten title game, and a guarantee Worst case scenario, that they would be the 5 seed in the CFP where they look to lose to Oregon again. They gagged. In particular, their coach fell apart. And they're ranked ahead of Tennessee, who since their bye have lost once. That was to Georgia. Ohio State, since their bye, has lost to Michigan. I'm going to go on a limb here. I think the Bulldogs are a lot better than the Michigan Wolverines. Despite the fact that Tennessee and Ohio State fans, I know, would agree with this statement. Tennessee is far and away the better coach. Josh Heupel, Ryan Day, think I'm going to go with Heupel by a mile. Despite the fact that Tennessee has a better defense. Top defense in the SEC, one of the 5 best defenses in college football, can get to the quarterback, turn the football over, great in coverage, arguably the best defensive coordinator, at least certainly one of the best in all of the sport, in Tim Banks, who Tennessee better pay that man whatever they got to pay him to keep him at Tennessee before he takes a head coaching job. It's inevitable he's going to leave at some point, but keep him as long as you can. And, oh, by the way, despite Ohio State certainly having the advantage at wide receiver, Tennessee has the advantage at running back. Give me Dylan Sampson over Judkins any day of the week. And I'm sorry, give me Nico Iamaleava over Will Howard any day of the week. He's played better as of late. He finished the season hot. Not the case with Will Howard. The idea that Tennessee, after all this, should have to go to Columbus after Ohio State gagged over itself against Michigan, one of the worst passing offenses in the country, is a 20-point favorite, despite the fact they lost 3 straight games to a team in a rivalry that they literally call the game. Ohio State vomited all over itself, and they're rewarded with a home game against Tennessee. Now, could Tennessee beat Ohio State? I think they will beat Ohio State because of the coaching advantage. Because of, now, would I prefer, depending on how the playoff shakes out, would I prefer a matchup with like a Texas over an Ohio State? Yeah, I would, because Ohio State's more talented than Texas. Texas is better coached. But at the same time, I'd much rather go to Austin than go to Columbus. But we talked about the Alabama, Miami, the fact that Alabama gets the tiebreaker seems like every time just by virtue of being Alabama. Evidently, that's the case. And by the way, Tennessee's a big brand. Not Ohio State big, but Tennessee is a big brand in college football. But relatively similar resumes. They gave the advantage to the Buckeyes despite an objectively embarrassing performance. Humiliating. To the point they're calling for the coach's job. Yeah, that team's better than the other team with one of the 10 best coaches in college football. The better quarterback, the better defense, the better running game, and with a better resume against ranked teams and teams over 500. So, CFP committee, have at it. You can have your Ohio State ahead of Tennessee. That's all right. The Vols can cruise into Columbus. It'll be a tough, hard-fought game, close down the wire. We know that. But the fact of the matter is, just based on resume, eye test, and recency, Tennessee has been better than Ohio State over the second half of the season. The resume shows that against ranked teams, against teams over 500. They have the advantage at key areas. Defense, head coach, quarterback, and I think certainly running game as well. But Ohio State, just by virtue of being Ohio State, gets the advantage. Oh, well, Bryson, they beat Indiana. Yes, the biggest fraud in the college football playoff, and it's not remotely close. Have at it. Give Ohio State the home game. But you got it wrong this time. Well, you've gotten it wrong a lot over the years. You messed up on this one this time. So, this week's edition of the Vol View, Tennessee's going to be fine in the long run. I'm not going to be out here saying they're going to win the Natty because Oregon, to me, the teams that to me are clearly, without question, are better than Tennessee. Oregon. Anybody else think Tennessee can beat? I think they can beat Georgia on a neutral field. I think they can beat Texas at Texas. Heck, Georgia smoked Texas at Texas. And we're going to see what happens in the SEC title game. We'll see how that plays itself out. But that's the reality of what happened. So, Vols will be fine. If we got to put the show on the road and go to Columbus, then we got to take the show on the road and go to Columbus. But the Vols, despite getting screwed by the CFP committee, will be just fine. Should have gotten a game at Neyland. Who knows? Maybe if Penn State gets boat raced, maybe they would. I don't know. A lot would have to happen in order for Tennessee to get a home game, but hope remains eternal, at least until the games are over on Saturday, until the rankings come out on Sunday. But that is it for this week's edition of the Vol View. And again, Tennessee, at the very least, we know for certain, I can go to bed knowing we're in the college football playoff for the first time in program history. So that is it for this week's edition of the Vol View.
You're darn right. It's football time in Tennessee.
Football time in Tennessee.
It's always football time in Tennessee. And again, a college football championship weekend predictions coming up in about 15 minutes, as well as how that will affect and how I think the college football playoff will look on Sunday. I guess Sunday afternoon is when they announce it on ESPN to see what the 12-team playoff looks like. But real quick, let's check the comments. Patrick's in here giving his thoughts. He says the Vols will, oh, wow. Now that I don't necessarily expect that. I'm the biggest Vols fan ever. I never thought to see the day where Patrick is more optimistic on Tennessee than I am, and I'm an optimistic Tennessee fan. But he says the Vols will dismantle Ohio State. It would bring me great joy and the nail in the coffin for Ryan Day. GBO. I did like that you added GBO at the end. Go Big Orange. Dismantle? I don't know. Now, at Neyland, maybe. That's going to be hard to do at the Horseshoe in Columbus. I hope you're right. If you're right, I'll be over the moon. But especially over the CFP committee. Patrick, Ohio State is Alabama Midwest. The name and brand put them in play. I want to see them get embarrassed, humiliated, and Tennessee will take it personal. That should be the mindset. It will. Listen, Tennessee's going to be the team coming in with the chip on their shoulder. Ohio State, I mean, you want to talk about the fact that I would argue this, assuming that matchup is what comes to fruition. The fact that Ohio State did get the home game rather than Tennessee, I think adds more pressure. See, the Vols will go in 10-win season, second in the last 3 years. Josh Heupel, the program is back. Nico was a freshman. We got this defense, all these different things. We're feeling mighty fine about ourselves. With the chip on their shoulder that they got screwed in terms of the rankings and not getting a home game at Neyland Stadium. Meanwhile, you got Ohio State coming in with as much pressure as I can remember a college football playoff team going into a playoff game, maybe since the existence of the CFP. At home, first round, following an embarrassing loss to Michigan. Coach on the hottest of seats. Questions about the quarterback. Tennessee coming in with house money, playing better than Ohio State. With national championship expectations, did the Buckeyes have? Folks, a week ago at this time, Ohio State was number 2 in the country and seemed destined for a date and a rematch with Oregon in Indianapolis. And they gagged. Now, it could also play on the other side of the coin where Ohio State is just seething about the Michigan game for a month and comes out with their A game against Tennessee. Maybe. I've said Ryan Day was a better coach than he gets credit for. I've walked that back in the last few days. He's still a good coach. Everybody's acting like he's an incompetent coach. I disagree with that. He's a good coach. He's almost like the Mike McCarthy of college football. He's a good coach. That could very well be the case as well. But I'm telling you, the pressure, it will be so disproportionate for that game. Boy, and that will probably be a primetime ABC. I bet Fowler and Herb Street will be on the call. Whoo! Now that's pressure. What Ohio State is going to be going through if they were to face Tennessee at home in Columbus. That would be interesting. And again, predictions for the CFP later in the show and see what he got. Let's see what we got. Amazing H is in the comments. He says, as a Michigan native, Michigan, with the organization they have in place, did not deserve to beat Ohio State. Is Ohio State best team in the country? Probably not. No. And I agree. Props to you, Mason, for being objective about your squad. I think we all try to be that about our teams. Is that, and it's not to take credit from Michigan, but I think you agree with me in the sense that was more about what Ohio State did not do than what Michigan did. I mean, props to Michigan for putting together that drive to eventually hit the field goal. It's one of the worst game plans I've seen. Only game plan that I can think of is worse this year in football, NFL, college, was when the Ravens literally stopped running the football against Kansas City and totally panicked by the second quarter when the game was totally within reach. I think the running backs got like 7 carries when the Ravens were the best rushing team in football that year. It's like, guys, why are you just throwing it every play? Like, you can still run the ball. It's a close game. So there you go. Interesting point by Patrick, and then we'll move on. Ohio State beat Indiana as their game. Overlooked Michigan and gagged upon gagging without stopping. It was poetic justice, and I loved every minute. I know both Mason and Patrick did. I got 2 Michigan fans in the comments. Imagine they both did. As Michigan fans, there's no question about that. Okay, so let's move on. NBA. Patrick may have to turn off the show for this segment, as will any Lakers fan out there, because not the Los Angeles Lakers' best showing, to put it mildly. So in a recent skid, it got capped off on the road in Miami in a 134-93 loss. For those that aren't great at math, that's 41 points to the Miami Heat, who, by the way, are a 500 basketball team, mollywopped the Los Angeles Lakers in this basketball game. I think the Lakers start, and again, it's early. There's a trade deadline. I heard that there was there's the potential that they could bring Brandon Ingram back via trade. I was one of the guys about a year and a half ago that was like, hey, Warriors, trade for Brandon Ingram. There's, over the years, seemed to be some kind of locker room problems going on in New Orleans. I don't know if those are true or not. Those could be totally BS, but that's what I've heard. I don't think a locker room in LA that doesn't seem to be in the greatest of shape needs that. There's plenty of other options out there for the Lakers. A Valanciunas pickup would actually be quite nice if the Warriors don't steal him first. It's so predictable what happened with the Lakers this season, though. It is. So those that watched my show during the offseason, if you didn't, I'll fill you in. When they hired J.J. Redick, well, first of all, I was 100% in favor of them firing Darvin Ham. I'm friends with a guy who has sources to Los Angeles. It was bad. The locker room was as toxic gets. It was, for a number of reasons, it was bad. If you don't know the details, Shams Charania wrote an article about it about 6-7 months ago. Check that out. It'll fill you in on the details. It was not good. They should have fired Darvin Ham. They bring in J.J. Redick, and my mindset is, okay, J.J. is really smart. I think J.J. is going to be a successful coach in the NBA. I just don't think it's going to be Los Angeles for a couple of reasons. A, they hire and fire head coaches like, I don't know, like LeBron James dunks a basketball. It constantly. Number one. Number two, the Lakers roster construction, with the exception of the 2019 offseason, which, kudos to Rob Pelinka, it got him a championship. And people are like, oh, asterisk, that's as hard of a championship as there was. The bubble. I actually read a book on the bubble, forgot how bad it was. Like, it was, I wasn't there. But the players, it was kind of brutal. The fact the Lakers won, and whoever would have won, kudos to them. With the exception of 2019, they're about as bad as any team in basketball putting together a championship roster, or at least a contending roster. They've gotten off ever since the retirement of Kobe, or really since, if we want to go back to Kobe Achilles tear to now, every year they didn't have LeBron James, they were the drubs of basketball. Like, I mean, as bad as the Detroit Pistons were last year, the Lakers, you look at some of those seasons, weren't that much better. They were struggling to get to, 12, 13? I forgot how many games they won Kobe's last year. They were awful that season. So with all that said, this was predictable. Who did they add this offseason? Who did the Lakers add? You name it. Because I looked at something, heard Nick Wright say it on First Things First, and I double-checked, and it's true. It's kind of remarkable. The Lakers' last 4 guys they signed to the mid-level exemption, the last 4 guys, Avery Bradley, Montrezl Harrell, Kendrick Nunn, Lonnie Walker. Those 4 guys out of the NBA a year later. Out of the league. So in terms of putting together a good roster, they couldn't do it. And I thought J.J. Redick, because of the roster, now I thought by virtue of LeBron still being productive at this stage of his career, LeBron's been on a big-time slump, and Anthony Davis being at the apex prime of his career with an upgraded coach, I'm like, it'll be able to cover up some of the flaws. But it's the same team, basically with the addition of Gabe Vincent and Dalton Knecht. And Vincent has been god-awful this season. He's been horrible. Knecht has tailed off a little bit. That's a Tennessee guy, go Vols. But Knecht has had his moments. He can be solid. Knecht can be really, really good. Good scorer. Thought that out of the draft. It's the same team. And by the way, the numbers back it up. Different coach, same situation. Look at the numbers. This year, last year, they had a better record through 22 games. Scored more points per game. Gave up less points per game. Shot better from the field. Gave up less percentage from the field against opponents. And had a better net rating. So this Lakers team through 22 games, which is a solid sample size, nothing. And I think I don't know why this has been. There have been folks that have come after this individual. Why there hasn't been more momentum toward this? How does Rob Pelinka keep his job on a yearly basis despite doing literally nothing? Literally nothing. You since the Anthony Davis trade, since some of those moves in 2019, adding Danny Green, getting some of these guys that help them win a championship. You name the big move that Rob Pelinka has made that has worked long-term for the Los Angeles Lakers. I've said it is truly... Now, again, some of this, what I'm about to say, is because LeBron has gotten older. Is the fact that LeBron, to me, the last year of apex LeBron was the 2019-20 title. Like, ever since then, it has been a really slow decline. Like, really slow. But nonetheless, a decline in LeBron's productivity. With that said, he's still been a great player. The fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Heat, I expected it. The Heat were contenders all 4 years LeBron was there. The fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers put together more championship-worthy rosters, basically all of them in LeBron's second stint in Cleveland, than these Lakers have. We want to go year after year. Year 1, Bron gets hurt. Lakers miss the playoffs. Year 2, title. Year 3, Bron and AD get hurt. Out in round 1. Year 4, Westbrook experiment. Yeah, good move, Pelinka. Missed the playoffs. By the way, missed the play-in at that time, which it was the first or second year that existed. Next year, made a couple deals of a deadline. Really just got rid of Westbrook. Made the conference finals on the back of LeBron and AD. The next year, down in round 1. This year, that's about what I expect. I had the Lakers as the 8 seed. Play-in team. They'll beat a solid 7 seed or 8 seed, whoever, to get in the playoffs as a 7 or 8 seed. And then an Oklahoma City is going to take them out, or maybe a Denver. If Denver can get their act together, a Denver will take them out. I'd probably take the Rockets at this point to take the Lakers out. Golden State is better. So you look up and down the conference in the West, they don't have the guys. So anyone expecting that J.J. Redick was going to come in and bam, change everything. Guys, it's a toxic franchise. They're the Cowboys of the NBA. Too many family members, too many buses in the Lakers, too many Joneses with the Cowboys are running the too many buses and Rambuses are running the Lakers. Too many Joneses are running the Cowboys. They're not seeking outside influence. Of course, GM, Kobe's agent. They've hired coaches who have had ties to the Lakers. Like, it was never going to... Listen, JJ may fix this a couple years down the road if the Lakers give him that leash is the question, because, again, they have no patience. They fire guys like crazy. Pelinka does nothing. Pelinka's a bad GM. Has missed on coaches, missed on trades, has bombed in free agency. I mean, you remember last year? It's not last year. Remember during the summer, LeBron was a free agent, but most of us felt like, yeah, LeBron's probably going to stay with the Lakers. Play with the Sun, all that. You remember LeBron James, Dave McMenamin, who's as close with LeBron as any reporter out there. Remember Dave McMenamin of ESPN put out a list of guys that were free agents that LeBron wanted the Lakers to go after. One of them I thought was crazy, James Harden. But the other three, if I remember correctly, Jonas Valanciunas, DeMar DeRozan, Klay Thompson. I'm almost certain that was the list. LeBron says, I'll take a pay cut. I'm going to sign, but I'm not going to sign quite yet until I see, because if you don't get any of those guys, why would I take a pay cut? Just take the max. I'll take a pay cut if you bring one of those guys in. Miss. That's what Blinka does. He's a bad GM. He got there solely by virtue of being Kobe Bryant's agent, and he's completely unqualified for the job. And I've never seen a guy with this. He's almost like Doc Rivers in a way. Like, yeah, he got that one championship a long time ago. What is he other than that? So listen, I hate to try and help the Lakers here because, as a Warriors fan, I never want to see the Lakers do well. Love LeBron, hate the Lakers. But it's been utter incompetence by their GM for a long time. They got a championship almost solely on the backs of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And some of those roster moves they made. That was the one good Pelinka offseason. Outside of that, he's been awful. You name his big-time move, and I'll give him credit for it. Because he has not made that. Patrick, who's a Lakers fan. Lakers losing to Miami was nauseating and embarrassing. LeBron playing with a sore foot and missing 20-something threes, and AD disappeared. I won't be surprised if he shut down for a couple weeks to let his foot heal. James is forcing shots and trying to play 82 games. Father Time is catching up and showing each night. Yeah, I heard LeBron saying something about playing 82 games. That's not realistic. The only guys that I'd be okay with playing 82 games is like an Anthony Edwards, young guys like that. Maybe I think Giannis's body can sustain it. Maybe Jokic's. It's not a good idea for most guys to play the whole season start to finish. LeBron did it in his, I thought was the greatest season of his career, 2018, when he dragged one of the worst rosters in basketball to the darn finals. Listen, that might be good for him. Patrick, shut him down for a couple weeks, get that foot healthy, but he's certainly not the player they used to be. And the Lakers aren't going anywhere. Unless they make a trade that I don't really see them make. Again, could they bring in a Valanciunas? Yeah, that'd be a really good pickup. It'd make them better. It would probably guarantee they're in the playoffs as long as Bron and AD are healthy. This is nowhere near a championship contender and never was going to be. Never. I did not think coming into the season this team could win a championship. With the upgraded coach, with LeBron declining but still good and to great, AD in his prime, there's nothing. There's nothing there. Austin Reeves, Hachimura, really? Is that what we're relying on to get us buckets on a consistent basis? Derek, not Derek White. Al Horford is like the 6th or 7th best player in the Celtics. He'd be like the 4th best player in the Lakers. There are levels to this. All right, be back after the break. Take one more break, and we'll come back and predict conference championship weekend in college football and the effect that will have on the college football playoff. And of course, after that, get to NFL predictions. Week 14, I've got my upset of the week. I've got Bryson's Bleak Bet. And of course, I've got my 3 games for If I Were a Betman. Stay tuned. Top of next hour, college football predictions, college football playoff rankings, what I think they'll look like in the seeding. And of course, NFL predictions week 14. Stay tuned after the break. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Man, I talked about earlier before the ball view how crazy of a year this has been in college football. And now we've got just an amazing... I was talking about it with my buddy and my co-host Asher Moore. Shout out to Asher. Triple Option. Final show of Triple Option will be this Monday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern on 89.5 The Edge. Please stay tuned for that. It's in the TuneIn app. The link, by the way, to that is on my social media stories. Be sure to check that out, the Triple Option. Asher and I were talking about it on the radio this morning, or at noon, I guess, today. And I said, it's like Christmas Day. You've got all these great games in college football. And tonight with Boise State and with UNLV, it's like that one present your parents will let you open on Christmas Eve. They're like, we'll let you open one. Usually they'll pick it because they want the big gifts for Christmas. Give it to you, let you open it Christmas Eve before the big man arrives in the middle of the night. And that's how I feel about Boise State and UNLV tonight. So get to predictions right now. Let's go and get the background music going because it is going to be an unbelievable week. Let's get the intense background music going on because it is college football conference championship game weekend. Here we go. All right, starting with tonight, again, I called it the Christmas present of college football, or the early Christmas Eve present of college football. You got the Boise State Broncos taking on the UNLV Rebels. This game is going to kick off at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so about an hour from now on Fox. It's the Mountain West Championship game. The winner of this, no question, the college football playoff. It's going to be at Albertson Stadium at Boise State. So the Broncos are favored -4.5 in this game. They actually beat UNLV 29-24 earlier this season. Here's what I would say. It feels like we've been on a little bit of a collision course to get Boise State and UNLV, and these have been the two best teams. I mean, again, UNLV, I talked about it on my show with the Matt Sluka situation with the NIL stuff. It was on the kids' side, and UNLV went through that, got back on their feet, and they've been able to survive it, get to this point in the Mountain West title game. But this guy, listen, UNLV is a great team, ranked 22nd in the CFP poll. But there's certain dudes. Ashton friggin' Jeanty. It's a man who, forget about his stats for just a moment. It's a man who stands straight up. Like act like I'm stand straight right now. That's how he stands in the backfield. He ain't worried about you. Hey, load the box all you want. Put 9 guys down there if you got to. You ain't stopping me. And nobody stopped Ashton Jeanty this season, who's going to be able to two finals for the Heisman Trophy, at least the top two. The big discussion between he and Travis Hunter of Colorado. Ashton Jeanty will get another game to prove why he is the Heisman in his mind. Ashton Jeanty, how's Barry Sanders' record falling to this guy? 2,288 yards rushing, 28 touchdowns, averaging 7.3 yards per carry. This guy's going to go top 10 in the NFL draft. He is an all-time talent out of college football at the running back position, and he is going to lead the Broncos to a victory over UNLV in the Mountain West Championship game. I think they win comfortably. I think this is Ashton Jeanty's, not even, weird to say coming out party because he's been doing that all season long, but really to do the best that he can to establish, I am the best player in college football. I am better than Travis Hunter, and we'll see how the voters feel when the time comes to vote for that prestigious award. But Boise State 34, UNLV 20, and the Boise State Broncos will be in the college football playoff, and they will win the Mountain West Championship game tonight. All right, tomorrow at noon, Big 12 title game, the Iowa State Cyclones and the Arizona State Sun Devils. This game is going to be played at Jerry World, and it will be the biggest game played at Jerry World all calendar year. Well, I guess the Packers and Cowboys game was sort of, whatever. Big game at Jerry World. Cowboys aren't used to that this season. But the Sun Devils are favored at -1.5. So I don't think anybody thought we'd get this before the season. I thought Iowa. I thought Utah was a surefire. Man, they've been dominating the Pac-12 all this time. Like they'll have a great time adjusting to the Big 12, and it has been injuries upon injuries upon injuries, and Utah totally fell apart this season. Kansas was a sexy pick from a lot of people. Some folks thought, hey, can Deion break through this year? And it was looking like he was going to. And then Kansas screwed up a lot of people's seasons, BYU included, and Kansas beat Colorado to knock them out of Big 12 title game contention. So this is what we got: Iowa State and Arizona State. Again, Sun Devils favored -1.5. If you look at what they've done this season, with no expectations coming in, unranked coming into the season, okay? beating BYU the way that they did, storming the field, the fans, God bless them, stormed the field a little prematurely, but Arizona State took care of business when they had to, got to this game by virtue of just sheer willpower defensively, offensively. They've got some good pieces there as well. As good as Iowa State's season has been, there's a guy, I don't know if I'm trying to pull this up, I'm not sure if anybody's heard of him, but Arizona State's got a running back. His name is Cam Skatabo. Unbelievable. Might be the second best running back in college football to Ashton Jeanty. Because he's got 1,300 rushing yards, 17 touchdowns. Argument can be made he is number 2 at the running back position behind Ashton Jeanty. I'm going to go with Arizona State in their inaugural season in the Big 12 to beat Iowa State 34-20. Win this game. Again, similar score to the Mountain West title game. 34-20. Arizona State beats Iowa State, and they will be in the college football playoff. You'll see where I have them in just a few minutes. Moving on. It's the one I'm most excited about because I'm a Tennessee fan, therefore I'm an SEC guy. The SEC championship game, as we say in the Southeastern Conference, it just means more. Georgia, Texas, 2 titans of the sport. Now, of course, these two teams did face off earlier this season in Austin, and Georgia, pardon my pun, dog-walked the Longhorns in their building by a final score of 30-15, and actually the score was not indicative of how bad they actually did beat them physically in that matchup in Austin. So this game obviously going to be played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Atlanta, Georgia, one of the most beautiful sporting venues in the United States of America, and they've been holding the SEC title game every year there since 2017. So, Texas is a 2.5-point favorite in this game. So there are some basic matchups that seem to favor the Longhorns in the sense that, okay, if nothing else, 2 factors. We're pissed if we're Texas because of 2 reasons. Number 1, this team embarrassed us in our home field and handed us our only loss of the season. That's pretty simple, cut and dry. Number 2, Texas needed to beat Texas A&M on the road last week in order to get here, which obviously they did. They wouldn't be here otherwise. Offensively, they did nothing, though. They were terrible in the red zone. The defense carried the day. So Texas looking to bounce back. For Georgia, the way that they can potentially expose this is the fact that Georgia just played a marathon in order to beat Georgia Tech. Okay, down 17-0 at halftime, having to scratch and claw their way back in the fourth quarter just to tie it. They go to not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, 8 overtimes, just one short of the all-time college football record, which is 9. I think it was like Penn State and somebody. Was Indiana or something? Penn State, Indiana. It was a Penn State game years ago. 8 overtimes in order for the Georgia Bulldogs to survive Georgia Tech. What was one of the games of the college football season. So you have to imagine there's a bit of fatigue there. What I would say to you is this, and what I think why I'm leaning the way that I'm leaning in this game, because I think Texas has the better roster than Georgia, and Sark is an outstanding coach, outstanding. Rebuilt that program. With that said, there's a legit home. Texas fans travel well. I'm sure McConaughey will be there. They won't invite the big Longhorn there, which is ridiculous. But the point is, Texas fans will travel. You'll see some burnt orange all throughout Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But that's going to be a virtual home game for Georgia. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it's not that far. Atlanta's not that far from Athens, same state. It's going to be a virtual Georgia soft home game. Excuse me, for that reason. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm not sure. Kirby Smart is like a milder Dan Campbell. Not in, he doesn't go for 4th downs the way Dan Campbell does. No one goes for 4th downs the way Dan Campbell does. Not in college or pro that I'm aware of. But in the sense that back against the wall or just in general, motivating guys, Kirby Smart's going to have them ready to play a big game every single time that they have to suit up. Even their big game against Alabama, which they lost, they competed in that game, clawed their way back to make it a game after being down 28-0. So, despite the massive questions I have about Carson Beck, who threw three picks the last time these two teams played, despite my massive questions about his ability to push the ball down the field, intermediate routes, playing within an offense, bit of a system quarterback, if you ask me, been pretty solid. The running game's been good for Georgia, and keep in mind, remember Georgia last year? Back-to-back champions, mauled everybody in the regular season, had all these ranked wins, got to the SEC title game and the final SEC title game, the final win of the Nick Saban era, and Nick Saban did Nick Saban things. Alabama upset Georgia in the SEC title game 27-24, and after going undefeated with back-to-back titles, Georgia got kicked out the dance, kicked out of the college football playoff. You don't think Kirby Smart listen, Georgia's probably, I'd say like a 95% chance in the college football playoff, but they're not guaranteed. If Texas were like embarrass them, maybe Georgia's out with 3 losses, potentially. Probably not, but potentially, because of part of the loss to Alabama. You think Kirby Smart's not going to have those guys ready to go? So I got Georgia in this matchup over Texas in a thriller, in a back-and-forth game. Same score as the Lions-Packers game last night. 34-31. Georgia beats Texas. Take Georgia plus 2.5 and to win this game outright. The Dogs get to the college football playoff. Not just get there, but secure a top 4 seed and therefore a first-round bye. And who would have thought that? After that Ole Miss loss, given they had to face Tennessee, given the fact that all the chaos ahead of them had to happen in order for them to just get to the SEC title game, you win, you're a top 4 seed after questions about whether you'd be in at all a couple weeks ago occurred. Give me the Dogs over the Longhorns, 34-31, in what I think will be the most entertaining game of championship Saturday. Big Ten title game. Penn State, and actually, no, let's do ACC title game. ACC title game, Clemson, SMU in their I believe their first season in the ACC, I believe. Bank of America Stadium, which is where the Carolina Panthers play. This will be the biggest game at Bank of America Stadium of the calendar year, without question. So how about Clemson? SMU was great all season long, 11-1, more than deserving to be here. How about Clemson? A guy I've been critical of over the years, Dabo Swinney, who's an awesome coach, no one's going to deny that, but is just so doggone stubborn. Does not use the transfer portal, does not use NIL, at least to the level, certainly that an Ohio State uses, or that a Tennessee uses, or that these big programs use. He just does not do it. He's allergic to the transfer portal for reasons, I guess. My guy Asher, again, shout out to Asher, Clemson guy, he was telling me it's because he wants guys who, Clemson was their first choice and they're 100% loyal to Clemson. And it's a dumb reason, ridiculous. They were not supposed to be in this game after losing to South Carolina. Right? Lose South Carolina 9-3. It's like, they're toast. Even if we beat South Carolina and not make the ACC title game, we could be in the playoff. We're dead. We're screwed. And Syracuse comes out of nowhere. Syracuse is a good team this year, don't get me wrong, but still, Kyle McCord, Syracuse upsets I believe it's number 6 Miami. Down 21-0, come back, win that game. Clemson survives, lives to fight another day, and they would be a win away from the college football playoff in this 12-team format. SMU is a 2.5-point favorite in this game, as they should be. I think they're better than Clemson. Listen, SMU has one of the better offenses, certainly the ACC, but in college football as well. They can put up 30 points per game in a blink of an eye. I don't think as good of a defense as Clemson has. I don't think they have the firepower offensively to keep up with that. And as we all know, great offense beats great defense any day of the week. Give me SMU to win this game, 31-21 over the Clemson Tigers. Give me SMU minus 2.5. They beat Clemson, eliminate Clemson, and stamp their ticket to the college football playoff. SMU over Clemson, 31-21 in Charlotte. And finally, certainly the best game, at least as it pertains to, you got 2 top 3 teams in a conference title game, one of which I believe is fraudulent. Penn State Nittany Lions and the Oregon Ducks in the Big Ten title game in Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Oregon, number 1 team in the country, and makes the Big Ten title game in their first season in the conference. Oregon is a 3.5-point favorite. So I thought Indiana was fraudulent all season long, still feel strongly that way. I do not think they're one of the 12 best teams in the country. They're probably going to be in the playoff. That doesn't mean I think they should be. I feel like Penn State's a better version of Indiana. Penn State is 11-1, number 3 in the country. Penn State fans, help me out. Your signature win is Washington? Minnesota, who you survived by a single point. Is it, Illinois? Illinois, is that it? Oh, is it that game you had to go to overtime to beat USC? Is it that game? Listen, I've liked Drew Aller. I don't think he's ready to take on an Oregon defense that just swarms all over the field. A Dylan Gabriel, who's playing as well as any quarterback in college football in the second half of the season. And a Dan Lanning. We're talking about Dan Campbell. How about Dan Lanning? You want to talk about cut from the Nick Saban / Kirby Smart tree, of which he was a part of both? a guy who has his team ready to play each and every Saturday at the highest of levels. This is why Oregon's the best team in the country. This is why they're number one. This is why I still maintain, I hope I'm wrong, I hope my Vols win the title, but in a realistic world, in a world that I think is going to occur, I think Oregon is going to win the national title game. I think they're going to put the hammer on Penn State. Give me Oregon. 34-13, obviously minus 3.5 to cover to win this game outright over the Penn State Nittany Lions. Oregon, in their inaugural season in the Big Ten, wins the Big Ten title game over Penn State, and they were obviously going to be in the playoff, but stamps their ticket as numero uno, the number one team in the college football playoff. Oregon will be your Big Ten champions. I don't think it will be particularly close. I don't buy Penn State. Love their defensive line. James Franklin, been a James Franklin guy for a while. Don't buy it. Okay, let me take a drink of water for a second. And then we can go over, what I think the college football playoff will look like. Go and put it up on the screen. This is how I think it will be seeded. Not how the rankings of the seedings will look differently. This is how I think the rankings will look. Oregon will be number one as the Big Ten title winners. Georgia, by virtue of being Texas, will be number two. They will, again, maintain their lead ahead of SMU, who will beat Clemson, win the ACC, and be number three. Boise State, higher ranked than UC 12 seed Arizona State. Get to them. Boise State will win the Mountain West title game tonight. They will be the 4 seed in the college football playoff. Arizona State will win the Big 12, and they will be the last group of 5 team. They'll be at number 12 in the CFP. From 5 to 11, at-large teams. At number 5, Texas. I think they will put them a spot over Notre Dame. I think Texas had a shaky resume, but I guess because Ohio State vomited over themselves in the Michigan game, now that Michigan domination way back in week 2, I guess, looks a little better for Texas. And they came in and defensively just shut down Texas A&M. I think Texas will be the 5 seed. Notre Dame will fall a spot. They will be the 6 seed in the playoff. Penn State will drop from 3 to 7 because of their blowout against Oregon. Ohio State will be 8, stay at 8. Tennessee shouldn't be here, should be a spot higher, but will stay at 9. Ironically, I actually predicted Tennessee to go 10-2 and be the 9 seed in the college football playoff, but I guess I'd rather been slightly wrong on that prediction. Indiana, don't think they're one of the 12 best teams, but they're going to get in. They'll be at number 10. Alabama, they're probably one of the 12 best teams, I guess. Put them in at number 11, and Arizona State will be 12. So that means what we will get. Go and put that back up there. What we will get: Oregon, Georgia, SMU, Boise State. Get a week off, fellas. You're off. You're on a bye week. The matchups will be Texas hosting Arizona State. Notre Dame hosting Alabama. How's Alabama going to do in them cold temperatures will be interesting. Penn State is going to host Indiana. Mid versus midder, I guess. And then I think the most anticipated game without question, Notre Dame, Alabama will be fun, but the most anticipated game without question will be Ohio State hosting my Tennessee Volunteers. And that will be what the college football playoff looks like after Saturday, or really when it gets released on Sunday, but after Saturday's games conclude, ACC and Big Ten title games conclude, that is what the committee, I think, will decide upon. Is that what I think they should decide upon? No, but that's what I think it will look like. If I had my way, Tennessee would be no higher than 7th, no lower than 8th, so that 7-8 spot. And Indiana would be out, Miami would be in. Or South Carolina. South Carolina's got a compelling case. They were playing as well as anybody. Listen, as a Vols guy, I shouldn't like South Carolina, but there's a part of me, a good friend of mine, Grady, shout out to Grady. I did feel a little bit bad for the Gamecocks that they weren't able to be able to get in, but there you go, because I did think they play well over the course of the season. And can I ask this question, then we'll move on to NFL picks? How does Missouri go start to finish as a top 25 team in the nation? I looked at their resume today. Not that they're going to get in. Not like it means anything. I just thought Missouri was fraudulent from the start, and they did not let me down. They won their 9 games, but they maintained their fraudulency. So there you go. All right, get a drink of water, and then move in with a lighter tone of music. I guess. for the NFL predictions. Going into that background music going on right now because we got NFL picks for Week 14, and we got some good ones. Let's go and start with a game I'm obviously going to be very excited about. The Cleveland Browns coming to Pittsburgh, PA to take on my Steelers. My Steelers are a 6.5-point favorite at home against Cleveland. So on the surface, if you're a Steelers fan like myself, you think, man, coming off a game you score 44 against Cincinnati, albeit a god-awful Bengals defense, but nonetheless it's 44 against Cincinnati. You're hosting a Browns team that just beat you a couple of weeks ago on Thursday Night Football in front of the whole country to see in the snow globe. You are pissed off about how that result played itself out. Meanwhile, Cleveland, short week, tough loss to Denver. Jameis threw all his interceptions. You're down in the dumps. With that being said, that on its surface would seem to favor the Steelers and give them the cover. At the same time, if I'm a Steelers fan and if I know jack squat about the AFC North, it's that virtually all the games are close and no one really blows the other team out. They just don't. And if there's one team that really doesn't blow anybody out, they win games like always. Who really doesn't blow anybody out? It's the Steelers. They just don't blow teams out that much because that's not really how they're built. They're built to get the job done defensively, be opportunistic offensively. Thank God now with Russell Wilson, we have the big play now, and the running game has been excellent. I think the Steelers can get the job done. I do hate to say this, but I'm going to take the Browns plus 6.5, but the Steelers to win outright 25-20. A little bit of a funky score, but the Steelers, I don't think 44-38 was on anybody's minds last time out. But the Steelers will win this game, get to double-digit wins, maintain their lead of the Ravens, but get to a full 2-game lead over the Baltimore Ravens with 4 games to play the rest of the way. Steelers over Cleveland, 25-20, and they get to 10 wins, and the Browns' miserable season continues. I'm really upset about that. I know y'all can tell. It hurt me deeply. New Orleans Saints, New York Giants from the Meadowlands. Saints are a 5.5-point favorite. Listen, both these teams aren't very good. The Giants are really bad. They've been eliminated from playoff contention. The Saints had a nice 2-game stretch with an interim head coach, as I say, and you'll see later on with an interim head coach what I think. A little teaser down the road. The substitute teacher of the National Football League a substitute teacher comes in, usually an assistant. They're going to lighten up the mood. Everybody wants to put on good tape. The interim's this is really their interview for the job potentially in the future. All those things you got to consider. With that said, Taysom Hill, God bless him, knock on wood for him, is gone for the season. And Taysom Hill was playing about as well as he's played his entire career the last couple of games. Blows his knee against the Rams, done for the year, which just sucks for him and sucks for the Saints. And so without him on the road against the New York Giants, listen, 5.5 points for the New Orleans Saints on the road is a bit much. I get the Giants are good, but it is Brian Dable with extra time to prepare, and it is that great defensive line. Drew Lock's probably in the quarterback, Tommy DeVito, whoever. I'm going to take the Giants the points. The Saints are going to win this game 19-16 in kind of an ugly defensive battle. But 5.5, I know the Giants aren't good, but 5.5 is too many for the Saints. If it were like the Bills or something, they'd probably be favored by 8.5 or something. But yeah, 5.5 is too many. Giants plus 5.5. Saints to win this game outright 19-16 over the New York Giants, and they will get the job done. It is now time for my favorite segment every week, and I'm looking for my first 3-0 week. Please, God, give it to me. It is now time for
Bettin Man.
If I were a betting man, I'm looking at a homecoming. The Atlanta Falcons going to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Minnesota is a 5.5-point favorite. Kirk Cousins comes home to a franchise in which he spent 6 years of his career at between 2018 and 2023. And it probably couldn't have come at a worse time. You'd imagine Kirk, a lot of friends in Minnesota, not just teammates and coaches, but you imagine maybe people at the stadium, maybe, who knows, maybe his old next door neighbors will be at US Bank Stadium, probably Vikings season ticket holders, probably meet with them, have dinner in Minneapolis on Saturday night before the game, all those different things. Give me the Vikings fans, I imagine, will receive him warmly. Maybe didn't get quite to where he wanted to with Kirk Cousins, but he was a great guy in the community, good guy in general, teammate, leader. They're gonna give him a nice ovation. And so, with that said, Kirk would rather be playing better than he has been coming in. So he's had a stretch where he didn't play that well against he was actually bad against the Broncos. and he throws not one, not two, not three, but 4 interceptions, including as horrible a pick 6 against the Chargers as you can imagine, considering the fact the Chargers offense did not cross midfield in the second half of that game, and he found a way to lose at home. Minnesota's playing, the fact that Sam Darnold, for my criticism of him, has been a great fourth quarter quarterback this season. That matters. He's been deadly accurate in the fourth. Justin Jefferson's been amazing. The run game's been excellent. The O-line for Minnesota, sneaky good. And this Atlanta Falcons defense, again, kudos to what they did against the Chargers last week. That, to me, had more to do with the Chargers' injuries, J.K. Dobbins, Ladd McConkey, and others. I really like Minnesota in the spot. Give me the Vikings. It's a lot. I get 5.5, but give me the Vikings minus 5.5 to win 31-20 over the Falcons. Atlanta's kind of snowballing right now. I said coming into this week, I said, give Kirk his homecoming. If he plays well, leave him in as a starter. If he doesn't, which I don't think he will, Michael Penix Jr. starts the last 4 games of the season. And for the record, if you look at Atlanta's schedule, it's some Giants, Raiders, Washington doesn't have a good defense. Carolina. It's a good time to insert Michael Penix Jr. By the way, Drake May sat half the season as he's come in. Given what he's working with, this looked pretty good. And I wasn't crazy on May. I was very high on Penix, especially with these weapons in Atlanta. You could very well see Penix in this game in the second half if it were to get out of hand. Give me the Vikings 31-20 over the Atlanta Falcons. Went back and forth on this one. It was almost Bryce's Bleak bet. Las Vegas Raiders, Tampa Bay Buccaneers from Tampa. So I get it. The Raiders are terrible. They're 2-10. I understand it. Tampa Bay is 6-6. After, if the Falcons were to lose, Tampa wins. All of a sudden, Tampa's at the top of the NFC South once again, as they have been many times over the last 4 seasons. At the same time, I've had criticisms all year long about this Tampa defense. I don't trust that the secondary is atrocious. Baker Mayfield's been doing his thing. Tampa Bay, a little kind of fortunate to survive that game against Carolina, in which I thought the Panthers outplayed them. I certainly thought, as good as Baker played in overtime, I certainly thought Bryce Young outplayed Baker Mayfield over the course of that football game, particularly in the fourth quarter. Mike Evans is back. It's a home game for the Buccaneers. You have to imagine. By the way, I forgot to mention, this is a Super Bowl rematch. This is where Tampa got their first Super Bowl back in San Diego. Remember, old San Diego Chargers beat him in San Diego, beat the Raiders back in San Diego. That was the John Gruden revenge game against his old squad. Listen, if I know nothing else about the Raiders this season, for all their quarterback and coach and defense instability, I know one thing about this squad. They got a dog. And not just considering where he went to college. I mean a dog on that field every Sunday. As far as I'm concerned, the offensive rookie of the year, Brock Bowers. And given what he did to a good Kansas City defense last week, the heck's he gonna do against Tampa Bay? I think Brock Bowers, by the way, with extra rest, the Raiders' last game was a week ago today, last Black Friday. Extra time to prepare. Usually that helps coaches. I don't think Antonio Pierce is a very good coach at all. With that said, I do think and know Brock Bowers is a great player. Give me the Buccaneers to win this game 24-20. Close one. Close call for Tampa at home. Raiders plus 6.5. Again, it's too many, it's too many points for a Tampa Bay team that isn't playing that great offensively as of late. And again, I certainly don't trust their defense over the course of the season. Tampa over the Raiders 24-20, but Vegas covers plus 6.5. This next game should be blowout city. It would almost feel like cheating putting it on if I were a betting man. As many points as it is, it's still, you want to go with the home team. Carolina Panthers, Philadelphia Eagles. Philly is a 13.5 point favorite. Look, Carolina's played much better as of late, really since Bryce Young came back after being benched. It's been solid. Okay, passer rating has improved gradually over the course of his last few starts. Carolina, I think it's going to stick with Bryce. They should stick with Bryce. It's a weak quarterback draft. Give it a year 3, and if you're still not sure, then you draft a quarterback. And Bryce has earned the opportunity to get another year, especially with the quarterbacks in this draft for the Carolina Panthers. With that said, they're completely outmatched. Okay, this is Philadelphia at home. This is Saquon Barkley, who I still right now feel like is the MVP of the league. Jalen Hurts has been playing efficient football. Numbers are going to be eye-popping, but he's not turning it over. The Seagulls O-line is dominating teams on a week-to-week basis. And the Seagulls defense, I've waxed poetic about it, especially after much I bashed it last year. Rightfully so. It was horrible last season. It's been one of the 5 best defenses in the NFL. Giving the Philadelphia Eagles in a blowout, 33-16. They do cover the 13.5 points. I can see Carolina getting like a garbage time touchdown just to make it look a little bit better, look a little bit cleaner. on the resume. The Philly continues. This will be their 9th consecutive win. They'll win 33-16 over the Carolina Panthers. Moving on to Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans from the state capital here in the great state of Tennessee, Nashville. Love Nashville. Don't love either of these two teams. So the question is, who do I like? Oh, sorry. Who do I dislike less? In terms of their quarterbacking skills and in terms of how they conduct themselves as leaders. Mac Jones, and I was on that train way before everybody else was, about this guy's terrible, this guy's not a good locker room guy. Mac Jones and the Jaguars, or Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. It's if you're looking this Sunday for some great quarterback play, there's gonna be Bills, Rams, there's gonna be Chargers, Chiefs, there's gonna be some. I mean, heck, to a degree, Browns, Steelers, Jameis, Russell, good quarterbacks. This ain't your game. If you watch this game, it's because either you bet it or you're fans of both guys, or you're fans of not both guys, both teams. They've got a week to prepare. Brian Callahan and this Tennessee team, which has a good defense. It's had a good defense all season long. Bad day at the office last week against the Commanders, but that was a Washington team that needed a win. I'm going to give them a little bit of a pass there, especially for a bad 3-win team. It's Mac Jones. It's on the road. If Mac Jones is an underdog by a field goal, you tend to take the favorite. Definitely feel confident. Give me the Titans in the spot, 24-15, 2-score win over their rival Jaguars. It's Jacksonville was bad with Trevor Lawrence, who I know not a lot of people are a fan of. I still believe in Trevor long term, but even of those that are skeptical of Trevor, I think we'd agree he's a lot of bit better than Mac Jones, who I think is the worst quarterback in football. Either he or Deshaun Watson. It's between those two. All right. I bet against this team last week. It's easy money. I don't even bet, but that's why the segment is called Bettin Man. If I were a Bettin Man, it's free money on a weekly basis. I've finally, the Jets are an underdog on the road against the Miami Dolphins. Miami is favored -6. If I were a Bettin Man, Miami, extra time to prepare, at home, warm temperatures. Oh, I don't know. The Jets are going to be missing Sauce Gardner. How's that going to go against Tyreek Hill? The Jets are beat to hell. Aaron Rodgers is either beat to hell, bad, or both. Spoiler, it's both. The Jets coaching staff is abysmal. Who could have told you that coming into the season? This is going to be an absolute wipeout. There's no question about it. Give me the Miami Dolphins. If I were a Bettin Man, Dolphins -6 is the play without question. 34-17. By the way, Miami, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They're in too deep. They're not going to catch the 7-seed Broncos or Chargers, whoever's the 7-seed, or the Ravens. They're at 5. Those other teams are at 8. They're not going to catch them with 5 games to go. That said, they believe they still can. They're desperate enough to still be playing hard. Dolphins are going to wax the Jets on Sunday, 34-17. And I think it's safe to say the Aaron Rodgers 300-yard streak is going to, 300-yard streak is going to persist. What do we got next game? Oh, interesting one. All right. It is now time for Bryson's Bleak Bet. It's the one game every week I have absolutely zero confidence in predicting, but hey, you got to predict them all. NFC West showdown, and a big one at that. You got the Seattle Seahawks coming to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Arizona is a 2.5-point favorite at home. So I was starting. I had gotten my ticket to board the Arizona Cardinals train. Right? They were playing good football. Kyler's got it rolling. This defense is good. Maybe Jonathan Gannon has completely turned it around. James Conner's doing his thing. Former Steeler out here running all over teams. They're 6-4. I'm like, man, the Cardinals might be not a title contender, certainly, but they might be a valid playoff team. Maybe they could win a playoff game, a home playoff game potentially. And then Kyler started throwing some really bad interceptions against these same Seahawks in a game where this defense was great for 60 minutes. Kyler really kind of cost them that game in Seattle. And then last week, when it looked like they had the Vikings dead in the water, blow a fourth quarter lead to Sam Darnold and the Vikings, and they come back with back-to-back scoring drives to win that game. And so, all those things considered, Seattle's the top of the division, 7-5. Geno Smith is playing fine, about like you expect Geno Smith to play. Mike McDonald is coaching a defense that just got a pick 6 by defensive end off Aaron Rodgers. Now, at this point, anything's possible going against Aaron at this point. I have a rule that if I start to believe in a team and then they start to let me down, I'll pick them one more time. but I'm not going to, if they're an underdog, favorite, I'm not going to bet on them. Or underdog favorite, I'm not going to bet on them at all. Give me the Cardinals to win this game 21-20, but the Seahawks and the points. I don't feel great about it. If Seattle wins this game, it puts them in great position, especially we'll see what happens with the Rams against Buffalo to win the NFC West. But I'll take the Cardinals closing my eyes with not a whole heck of a lot of confidence. Seattle plus 2.5, Arizona to win outright 21-20 over Seattle Seahawks. It's hard to beat a team when teams are comparable, it's hard to beat them twice in a season unless you just have a major matchup that you could exploit. Buffalo Bills, Los Angeles Rams from LA, from SoFi Stadium. Bills are favored at -3.5. So, look, Buffalo's on a roll, won 7 games in a row. The Rams, I've been bullish on the Rams all season long, picked them to win the NFC West. Gonna stick with that until that is mathematically impossible. Because I believe in Matthew Stafford and I believe in Sean McVay. I also believe in Cooper Kupp and, in particular, Puka Nacua. I went back and forth on this. There's a bit of I talked about revenge factor, in the Georgia and Texas game, with Georgia trying to avenge losing the SEC title game last year. If you're the Rams, if you remember, folks, last time they faced Buffalo, it was in SoFi Stadium on banner night. Got their banner for 2021 Super Bowl champions, opening night, 2022 season, and Buffalo went into their house and smoked the Rams for 60 minutes in a row. As bad as I want to pick Stafford and the Rams, because, man, I think the Minnesotas and the Green Bays and the Washingtons of the world, they don't want to play the Rams and Stafford and McVay in the first round. As bad as I want to pick them, Buffalo's just better. And frankly, Bills Mafia is going to show out in LA. They did last time. If they did last time on ring night for the Rams, I think they're going to do so in week 14 against the 6-6 Rams team. Give me the Buffalo Bills 27-21 over the Los Angeles Rams. They do cover the 3.5 points. 27-21 Bills over the Los Angeles Rams. It is now time for my upset of the week. Give me the Chicago Bears. The Bears over the San Francisco 49ers, 24-20. Bears plus 3.5 and went outright in an upset, 24-20 over the 49ers. And here's why. So look, I got to say, I picked the Bears numerous times in upset of the week. They've come so close a couple of times. Came that close against Minnesota a couple of weeks ago. But Caleb took a really bad sack in overtime, and that was that. With that said, San Francisco's beat to hell, and they're not getting healthier anytime soon. Nick Bosa doubtful, Trent Williams out. That's bad news for the Niners. They obviously got smoked by Buffalo last week. Now, Caleb Williams is not exactly Josh Allen, but I imagine the conditions in Santa Clara, California, are going to be a little bit better in December than they will be in Orchard Park, New York, to put it mildly. Caleb, what have I said, though? Interim head coach, the substitute teacher of the NFL. Thomas Brown, I believe, is the guy's name. I'm going to call him the Gerald Ford of the National Football League. Folks don't know him. Listen, I'm a massive fan of presidential history. Gerald Ford, only president in our history to have never been elected vice president or president and serve in both positions. There were some resignations that led to him being Nixon's VP, and Nixon resigned. He became president. That's Thomas Brown. Shane Waldron, fired. Now Thomas Brown's the offensive coordinator. Now, and Matt Eberflus, fired. Now the interim head coach. Substitute teacher, simplify. He's done a really good job as the OC this far, no question about it, for this Bears team for Caleb, who's played excellent. No interceptions over the last 6 weeks for Caleb, which part of me is like, yeah, I'd rather you let it rip a little bit more than you have been. Some of it's been conservative play calling on the part of Waldron, but Caleb's a playmaker. Caleb's got the ability to torch a Niners defense that has just been withering, especially as bad as that Bears O-line is. If Nick Bosa were playing, I'd probably go with the Niners. Nick Bosa is doubtful. He's not be able to go. And again, Brock Purdy without elite weapons is he's fine. Give me the Bears in an upset, 24-20 over the San Francisco 49ers, 24-20. Bears win it, break their 6-game losing streak. And listen, Caleb, if you look at the Bears schedule, and then we'll move on to our last game. If you look at the Bears schedule moving forward over the course of the last bit of the season, okay, against from here on out, at the Vikings, home for the Lions, home for the Seahawks, at the Packers. Bears could easily go 0-4 in that stretch. This is kind of their last game that I feel like they can easily win. Not win easily, but you could see a scenario in which the Bears win this game. So ups to the week, Bears over the Niners 24-20. It is now time for my final game for my favorite segment. It is called
Bettin Man.
Ira Bettin Man. AFC West matchup, LA Chargers, Kansas City Chiefs from Arrowhead Stadium. Once again, I say,
Finally,
Kansas City is not a double-digit favorite. This is like a bettor's dream. And I'm not a bettor, but if I were, I'm like, thank God, finally. Because I get it, it's a divisional rivalry. I get it, there's familiarity, but here's what I know. The Kansas City Chiefs 6-0 in their last 6 games against the Chargers. Justin Herbert, for as great as I believe him to be, 1 win in his career against Patrick Mahomes, and that came all the way back in the 2021 season in Week 3. A long time ago. Kansas City's getting reinforcements. Pacheco was back last week, but back this week. DJ Humphries, signed him in free agency. Kansas City fans all week have been hitting me up like, man, DJ Humphries is going to fix our line. Mahomes has a left tackle. I think that is going to take massive dividends, and it's going to be evident when Mahomes is going to move around, maneuver the pocket. He's shimmying, shaking, finding Kelsey. Noah Gray's honestly this season been the better tight end. Kelsey's going to turn on the playoffs, no doubt about it. But 2 things. A, the Chargers offense, no Ladd McConkey in all likelihood. No J.K. Dobbins probably for the season on IR. We'll see if he comes back. We'll see if he doesn't. But the Chargers offense is decimated. And the Chiefs, let's be honest, close wins over Carolina and against the Vegas Raiders. Chiefs are tired about hearing how bad they are. They're like, Jarno, we're the back-to-back champs, 11-1. People, no one thinks we're good. Okay, let's on Sunday Night Football against our division rival, against Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, show the world that with us having these matchup advantages, we are the better team. I love Kansas City in the spot. Give me the Chiefs. If I were a bet man, -4, 21-16 over the Los Angeles Chargers. Getting close because all Chiefs games are close, but 4, reasonable number. I was getting nervous. I was thinking it was going to be around 6. I'm like, I'd probably go the Chargers in that spot. But Chiefs -4. Given how they have been playing, they're like, we need a big time, show the country, we're the best, we're the back-to-back champions, we need that spot. Kansas City, 21, LA Chargers, 16 for the final game for If I Were a Bet Man. There you go. So, big show. Had NFL, the controversial call that worked last night with Dan Campbell. Had Tennessee got screwed in the playoffs. You got the College Football Playoff Committee. You had Conference Championship weekend at NFL, all that stuff. So that's what we had. Fun show today on a Friday. Be back on Monday. That is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Monday, an hour earlier than usual. Want to make that abundantly clear, hour earlier than usual, at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except of course, for your sleeping cat. I would not advise it. They will get very angry at you, and you don't want that. Not from your furry little cat friend. It's funny. I'll tell you what. Nealon, give that little fella just regular water to drink, and for reasons he's been this his whole life. He for some reason really loves toilet water. You can't listen. Maybe a cat expert can hit me up. Doesn't sound like that'd be good for you to drink it. Maybe cats are not as affected by that as us humans. I don't know, but TMI. Whatever. All right. Just importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Patrick Brown in the comments, as always, appreciate him. Check out his newest article, his NFL MVPs article on the Grid's website. As for all of our incredible content creators, check us out on YouTube and anywhere you get your favorite podcasts, as well as all over social media. Check us all out. You can find the links to all that on the Grid Network's website. Just Google the Grid, GRYD Network. Go to our website via pod page. All the available information about our network is on there, as well as Patrick's articles. So shout out to him and shout out to everybody at the Grid Network. All right, fun show today. 100 minutes of sports talk. You gotta love it. We're in December. We're starting to wrap up the CFP championship race, and NFL's on our last 5 weeks of the season. Lakers are imploding. You got to love it. But we'll see everybody next Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time, like I said, on YouTube and on Facebook. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that affects every single one of us on a day-to-day basis in this country. And no matter anybody tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem. Oh, there's only one solution to the problem. Both are BS. Both are not true. It's a huge problem that needs a number of detailed, nuanced solutions to solve it. So we got to make our voices heard to keep this country safe. All right. Amazing football weekend that I can't wait to break down on Monday. Again, an hour earlier, 5 p.m. Eastern as opposed to 6 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to stay tuned for that, as well as our other content on the Grid and on the Carving It Up YouTube channel. Please be sure to subscribe to both. We will see you guys next week. Everybody stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Tennessee can go to Columbus. We got this, baby. We got this. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.